Good morning. This is Naveen Chinni, Assistant Professor, Department of MBA, Gayatri Vidya Parishad, College for Degree and PG Courses, Autonomous, Visakhapatnam. Today, we are going to learn about financial system. In today's session, we will discuss about what is financial system, what is its nature, role, and the link between financial system and economic development. These are the basic concepts we are going to discuss. Okay, uh, let me start this today's session. Before explaining about financial system, I would like to explain one important point. In any economy, there are two types of sectors. One is surplus sector, another one is deficit sector. Surplus sector includes individuals or maybe corporates or anyone whose income is more than their expenditure. On the other hand, a deficit sector is one where the income is less than their expenditure. We call them it is a deficit sector. There is a gap between surplus sector as well as the deficit sector. There is a need to transfer funds from surplus sector to deficit sector. So that role exactly done by this financial system. Financial system will act as a bridge between this surplus sector and deficit sector. Okay, now what is financial system? Financial system is a system that facilitates the movement of funds among people in an economy. As I told, there is a need to transfer funds from surplus sector to the deficit sector. We need to convert idle investment into product investment. There is a need to have one mechanism. That mechanism is our financial system. It is simply a means through which funds are exchanged between investors, lenders, as well as the borrowers. Then, whenever we are speaking about a financial system, what is its nature? The nature of the financial system can be explained in these five important elements. The first one is it facilitates transfer of funds between various people. It facilitates transfer of funds between investor to the lender or savers to the investors. Different people, there will be a transfer of fund. It can be done through this financial system through its various components. The transfer of funds will take place through financial institutions, financial markets using various instruments. That is the first important nature. Second one is mobilizing savings. I already told surplus sector will have income more than its expenditure. We call them is a savings. Generally, the savings are ideal if they don't park their savings in any financial instruments or any financial markets. Here, the financial system will provide an opportunity to them to park their savings. It will mobilize all idle money from the savings sector or surplus sector and make it available to the deficit sector, maybe corporates. So this is what we call mobilizing of the savings. And third one is it will reduce the risk. The money or the funds what a financial system mobilized will be diversified into various sources. The financial system never allocate the entire amount what it has allocated into a single source. Some percentage of funds what they mobilize will be allocated into maybe FMCG industry. Some percent will be allocated into automobile industry. Some percent may be allocated into IT industry. Like that, there will be a diversification of funds. Allocation of funds will be there. As a result, the risk with investment or risk in these activities will be very less. This can be done through financial system only. Next one is facilitate investment. As I already told, surplus sector, the people in the surplus sector will have an ideal money. They have to park this ideal money in a productive instrument. Financial system will give various investment alternative to park their surplus investment. It will provide various investments instrument ranges from equity shares, preference shares, or bonds and debentures, or money market instruments, or maybe post office accounts, or maybe bank accounts, bank deposits. So it will provide a number of alternatives to the investors, so that it will encourage the people with idle money, known as investors, to park their money in various investment avenues to become a productive activity. This can be done through this financial system only. Finally, it will enhances the liquidity in the economy. Uh, Here, the financial system always ensure proper flow of funds from one people to another people or from surplus sector to the deficit sector so that it can ensure availability of the funds anytime. So this simply shows the nature of financial system. Then what about the role of financial system? Whenever we are speaking about role of financial system, the first point we have to discuss is it facilitate payment mechanism. Here we have sellers, buyers and sellers purchase the product or services. To do their transactions, it requires some mode of payment mechanism. This will be provided by the financial system. Let us suppose a buyer purchasing a motor vehicle. In order to buy this, he has to pay the amount, and that amount should be transferred from that buyer to a seller. How is it possible? Through a financial system? Maybe if we consider any corporates, uh, a company will procure raw material from their supplier. Supplier will supply this raw material to the company. The company has to make payment in the form of preparing a check, and it will be sent to the supplier. Supplier will get the funds from the bank. So here the banks facilitate this transaction. Bank is a part of financial system. Like that, this financial system will provide a mechanism for making payment. That is the first one. Second one is it reduces risk. I already told the amount what a financial system collect will not invest in a single industry or in a single source. It will split the amount what it mobilize into different sources. So obviously what will happen, the risk will be reduced. There is a concept of diversification will be done automatically by this financial system, and the risk will be minimized. Next one is bringing savers and investors together. As we discussed previously, we have two sectors. One is surplus sector and second one is deficit sector. There is a need to bridge gap between deficit sector as well as the surplus sector. There should be a flow of funds from surplus sector to the deficit sector. The deficit sector can use this ideal money into a productive activity like performing their activities or for expansion. Particularly corporates. Corporates will use this surplus money to do their activities or to expand their activities or to diversify their activities so that it can convert the idle money into a productive money. So here there is a need to bridge gap between savers as well as the investors. This can be done by the financial system. And the fourth one is assisting capital formation. Already told. Here the money will be transferred from surplus sector to the deficit sector, and the corporate will be used, and they will invest this money in either performing their activity or expanding their activities leads to capital formation and improve the standards of living of the people. When there is a flow of funds from surplus sector to the deficit sector, obviously what will happen, more economic activity will be there. When our economic activity is increasing, obviously employment opportunity to the public also will increase. When our employment opportunity is increasing, obviously income also will increase and standards of living of the people also will increase. See here, financial system will not play a direct role. Here it will play a catalyst role. Catalyst role, nothing but it will act indirectly, but it will accelerate the pace of action. I mean, pace of reaction. That is what we call catalyst role. Finally, it facilitates economic development. Generally, the economic development depends on the technological growth. This is the argument of one school of economics. What they argue, when there is a growth in the technology, obviously there will be a growth in the economic development. But in order to have a growth in technology, we should have sufficient levels or sufficient amount of capital. This can be mobilized through this financial system. Without capital, we can't ensure technological growth or technological advancements. If we don't have technological advancement, there is no economic development. So here, financial system will play an indirect role in economic development of the nation. It will never play a direct role in economic development of the nation. It will play an indirect role. That is why we call it will play a catalyst role. So this simply explains or shows what is the role of a financial system. Then what is the relationship between financial system and economic development? This picture shows the relationship between financial system and economic development. as we discussed, we have two sectors. One is surplus sector and second one is deficit sector. Surplus sector, their income will be more than their consumption and own investment. But whereas deficit sector, their income will be less than consumption and its own investment. That's shown in the box. Income minus consumption plus own investment. If it is positive, we can call them as a surplus funding sector. If the value turns negative, we call them as a deficit spending sector. Okay, now there is a need to there is a need to transfer funds from the surplus sector to the deficit sector. That can be done through this financial system. So there is an here the financial system will play an intermediary role between surplus sector and a deficit sector, and there will be a flow of funds from surplus sector to deficit sector and leads to the capital formation. When the capital formation takes place, obviously more economic activity will be there. When more economic activity is there, obviously employment opportunities will be increased, income will be increased, standards of living will be increased, and economic growth and economic development is also possible. In this way, financial system play a key role in economic development. This is all about what is financial system, nature of financial system, role of financial system, and the relationship between financial system and economic development. Thank you.